Hi everyone. We are going to start our. I think this is the first lecture that I'm going to upload here, and I'm trying to start the slideshow. There it is. Okay, so the slideshow has started. Let me move my button there. Okay, so hi everyone. So this is our first lecture using this app, and I hope that this will be, or using this program, and I hope that it will be beneficial to you. Uh, to understand this topic more. So as you can see, we are going to be heading into the direction of martial law. Now, martial law is not a very strange topic because this is not something that happened a long time ago. And those who were primary sources of this event are already really old. I even experienced a little bit of martial law. I remember the EDSA revolution more, but I mean, you have parents, you probably have grandparents, aunts, uncles, neighbors who have experienced martial law. So it's actually a very interesting time because you can still ask the people who were there during martial law about their opinions or what they felt about it and all of that, which is actually going to be an assignment. So you're going to interview some people. I will give you guide questions, and you're going to interview some people about like what they experienced during martial law already. So now, martial law is very controversial. It is a very controversial topic. So many people have disagreeing opinions about this, especially now, because there are attempts to revise Philippine history, particularly the issue of martial law and the story of the Marcoses. So there are so many things that need to be. There are so many things that need to be uh, clarified, okay, moving forward, because there are even a lot of millennials who are calling Marcos a hero. And it's really something that so many historians who are very concerned about the truth, they really want to fight this. So hopefully you will keep an open mind. Of course, I could have some opinions of my own that are not entirely accurate. So if you have questions, you can always email me. But definitely being someone whose family was directly affected by martial law, this is really something that I cannot, in good conscience, call as the golden age of Philippine history, because they call the martial law era as the golden age of Philippine history now. That is something that I have a very hard time digesting. So anyway, but I am going to try to be. I'm going to be. I'm going to try to be able to hold open discussions with you. If you have questions, please do email me. If we have differing opinions, you're not going to fail this subject if your opinion differs from mine, of course. But let's keep the table open for discussion always. Okay, now so martial law. Now, you know this guy. What's his name? Very good. So this is Ferdinand Marcos. Okay, so this is Ferdinand Marcos, probably one of the most, if not the most controversial presidents. My dog is disturbing me. Chanel, you have to be quiet. Okay, so anyway, sorry about that. So, if not the most controversial president of the Philippines, he's definitely one who's at the top of that list. So, we have here martial law. Chanel, you have to be quiet, honey. Sorry about that. Now, so we have here some reasons why martial law is regarded as a very controversial period in Philippine history. Number one, there were issues of corruption. During martial law, the reported corruption of government officials, particularly the cronies of Marcos. A crony is a Marcos friend or family member who benefited so much, like financially, from the Marcos family and the Marcoses stay in power. The cronies, so that's CRONY for singular, CRONIES for plural. So these cronies benefited a lot. Okay, so the Cojuangcos, Rustans, the Rustans family, not the Rustans family, that's not their family name, but the family that started Rustans, they benefited a lot, so these cronies got so rich and they got so much political favor, they got so much economical favor. There was widespread corruption during martial law. That is one of the biggest reasons why people are so opposed to it, and the people really hated this period of time. And there was another issue of the 1969 electoral fraud, where they did not believe at all that Marcos won his second term fair and square. Okay, so so Marcos became president, and then in 1969 he ran against Sergio Osmeña, actually. And then when he ran, it was so corrupt. Not Sergio Osmeña from before, but Sergio Osmeña. Anyway, junior, I think, or the third, I'm not sure. But there was a lot of evidence that was ignored because of the power of the Marcoses, and they really did not believe that that Marcos won fair and square. They really believed that there was fraud that was involved, and so they questioned the legitimacy of Marcos's presidency kaayo. So that is another reason, excuse me, while I pour myself a glass of water. That is actually one of the reasons why the martial law era was not particularly favored by many. We have Marcos's strict leadership. Actually, using the word strict is it's a very mild way of putting how severe Marcos's leadership was during martial law, because when I attended a martial law conference, there were actually 100 martial law victims that were present, and they were talking about how harsh Marcos treated them because they opposed him. Their only fault was that they opposed him. They were not criminals, they were not corrupt, they were not fraudulent, but they opposed him, and so they were tortured for it, they were imprisoned for it, their property was confiscated and all of that. And that was just one conference, and this was just a hundred victims, and how many more were out there. Okay, and the last was the collapse of the economy, because during martial law, which is ironic why so many people call it the golden age of Philippine history, when in fact during martial law our economy really collapsed, because Marcos, in order to keep up appearances that we were progressing, he kept borrowing money. This was when our utang became so huge. It was really so huge already. He wanted to make people think, or other countries think, or even the Filipino people think, I'm like, oh, we must be progressing, no? Because he kept building. He built the San Juanico Bridge, he built highways, he built hospitals, he built cultural centers. And so maybe people were kind of like, okay, so then maybe we're not doing so badly as a country. But that was in fact very, very wrong. Okay, so there was really something wrong about that. It was kind of like a bubble. We had this economic bubble. No, we thought we were doing well, but in fact we weren't, because it was all utang. And plus, it was not just that. Collapse of the economy can be attributed also with the lavish lifestyle of the Marcoses, which will also be discussed in this lecture, because this will just be kind of like a background thing, and then I will be presenting to you the essential truths of martial law later on. Now, so these are the 4 reasons why martial law was a very controversial time. Now, what is martial law? Now, hold on. All right, so let's continue. I don't know if that paused or not. If it didn't, then never mind, just ignore it. Okay, so we have here what is martial law. Now, martial law is this laser pointer there. Martial law is the imposition. Imposition means it's forcefully done, okay? When something is imposed, it's forcefully done. You have no choice but to obey it. Martial law is the imposition of direct military control of normal civilian functions. Okay, let's stop here first. Martial law is the imposition of direct military control because usually you do not see the military roaming around the city, roaming around the province. You don't see military. They're usually in their barracks, they're usually in their bases, and they're only called when they need to defend the country from external threat. But when there is martial law, there is direct military control of normal civilian functions by a government, especially in response to a temporary emergency. Let me move my bubble here. Temporary emergency such as invasion or major disaster or in an occupied territory. So it's supposed to be temporary. There is direct military control, and this is imposed by the government. But as you know, military control during martial law was not temporary anymore. As you know, years rolled by, years and years and years rolled by, and it seemed like martial law was going to last forever. I think in the Constitution now, you're only allowed to declare martial law up to 6 months. Okay, that is really a short period of time. But under Marcos's reign, it was issued in 1972. It ended in 1986. That's a very long time for martial law to exist. That's years upon years upon years. It's supposed to be temporary. So, for how from 1972 to 1986, there was direct military control. You know how it feels right now during quarantine, wherein you can't really go out of your house. You can't, there are checkpoints everywhere. You need a special pass and all of that. You can't just leave the country and all of that. During martial law, it was kind of like the situation now, except we are not staying home because there is a virus out there. We were staying home because if you do not do that, if you do not behave, you might really get punished by Marcos. So can you imagine if this whole quarantine period will stretch for about 17 years? Like I really cannot imagine it. It hasn't even been a month yet and you're kind of like, "Man, is life going to be like this forever?" So it feels like that. Martial law felt like this, except there was no virus. There was just a dictator in Malacanang. So it's not a happy time. Okay, like your freedom, like your freedom is not within your reach. It's not something that you can hold on to. So we have that is what martial law is. Now, I mentioned something about revisionism before. There are so many people who want to change what the history books say about Marcos. They want Marcos to be called a hero, the greatest president. They want Marcos to be called someone um, that is who brought about like the golden age of Philippine history, and this is really something that as a history teacher I really want to preserve the truth. Okay, so hopefully I will be able to present the truth to you. I'm going to present the essential truths of martial law in part 2 of this because I will divide this lecture into 3 parts. So hopefully we will be able to really see the truth for what it really is. So let's fight. It's really this revisionism that we have to fight against. Okay, now revisionism. Now the reasons Marcos gave for martial. Oh, I have to move my chat bubble again. The reasons Marcos gave for martial law. What reasons did he use to justify martial law? So we have one. He said there was a grave threat to the country's stability. He said the country is no longer stable. It is not safe. There is unrest. Okay, the first event that he used was the Plaza Miranda bombing. Now, if you see this picture, it looks like a happy picture. It does not look like there's a bombing going on there because this was a campaign rally. There were 8 senatorial candidates who were campaigning, during election time, where they set up a stage and then they talk about their programs. Oh, this is why you should vote for me. In Plaza Miranda, there were senators who were speaking like that. And then all of a sudden, two hand grenades were tossed onto the stage. It exploded and it instantly killed, oh man, timing pa yun. It instantly killed a 5-year-old boy. A 5-year-old boy who was there. He was injured. So many people were injured. The senators themselves were injured. It was really a horrible sight. Look at this is kind of like a shot by shot happening. So there, oh, they were just having a normal campaign, and then all of a sudden the grenade exploded, and then here are some of the victims. Okay, and then it's very weird pag yun, because Ninoy Aquino was supposed to attend this rally, but he was late because he was delayed somewhere and he's not able to attend. And then Marcos kind of used that as an excuse na maybe not president, Senator Aquino, Ninoy Aquino was one of the people who plotted the Plaza Miranda bombing, because he often called him a communist. Okay, so that was even something that was used against Ninoy Aquino. So, hala, Plaza Miranda bombing. Oh my, the country is in really, like, in dire straits. It's violent already. We really have to do martial law, direct military control, because the people panic, because a bombing is not something that you're like, oh yeah, okay, that happens every day. Hopefully, that is not how you treat bombings. But when this bomb exploded, rattled, the Filipinos were rattled, and this was used by President Marcos to kind of make people feel that the Philippines is no longer safe. Another issue is Juan Ponce Enrile now. It's so funny because this Juan Ponce Enrile, there's so many memes of him floating around during this quarantine time, and nothing can kill him, kuno, because actually until now he is still part of the Senate. I cannot believe it. It's like he survived so many periods of Philippine history, and there's so many memes about him now. He was already active during the Marcos era, and then actually there was an assassination attempt on Juan Ponce Enrile during this time. So when he was said to have been going home, this was his car. Um, a machine gun was taken out, and like if you see those bullet holes, they really ransacked. They totaled his car with bullets. But coincidentally, he was not riding this car. He was riding his bodyguard's car. So it was like, oh, how convenient, Enrile. So he was riding his bodyguard's car, and then it was like, so he was not killed. So they called it an assassination attempt. And then later on, because Enrile would later switch sides, he would be anti-Marcos later on. He was still pro-Marcos at this time during the early stages. When he became anti-Marcos, he actually said that this was fake. This was set up. This was really staged by Marcos in order to make the people panic some more. That there is really a threat to our safety, so that the people will be like, okay, good, just declare martial law because we are no longer safe. So it was staged by Marcos, according to Juan Ponce Enrile. Now, when all of this happened, when the bombing, the assassination attempt, and there was even it's going to be you'll be watching a documentary for this. There is even a documentary which wherein Imelda Marcos, the wife of Marcos, there was an assassination attempt on her. Also, she was giving a speech, and then a man carrying a bolo ran on stage and started whacking her. So she had so many cuts here. And so that was also another incident that was used. It was so strange, and it really looked fake. You're going to see a clip of that, God willing, in the documentary that you're going to watch. Now, because of all these events such as these, Marcos decided to cancel the writ of habeas corpus. Okay, now that's a bunch of unfamiliar words. So the writ of habeas corpus. Now, what is the writ of habeas corpus? First, the writ of habeas corpus is the right of any arrested person to be prosecuted, not persecuted. Ha? So many of my students think this means persecuted. Prosecuted in a court of law for a crime before being imprisoned if proven guilty. Okay, let me chop that up for you. If you are arrested, for example, I got arrested. I hope not. But if I got arrested, it is my right to be prosecuted in a court of law. I have a right to an attorney. I'm sure you've seen movies where you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be assigned to you. That is the writ of habeas corpus. Those are called the Miranda rights. If you get arrested, you have a right to defend yourself. You have a right to present evidence to prove that you are innocent. You have a right to call witnesses. You have a right to be informed of what you are arrested for. But the writ of habeas, and before being imprisoned, you are not imprisoned right away. I'm like, okay, you're going to jail because you stole some banana. Banono, because you stole banono, you have to be imprisoned right away. Before I get imprisoned, I can go and saying a lawyer, please prove to the world that I did not steal the banono. Okay, now, if proven guilty, if I'm not proven guilty, if the judge, Chanel, if the judge says that I am innocent, then I will be set free. Now, Marcos, after the Plaza Miranda bombing, the assassination attempt on Enrile, he suspended the writ of habeas corpus. So, what happens when the writ of habeas corpus is suspended? Try to think about it. I can't hear your answer, but what do you think will happen? I wish I could hear your voices right now. I'm sure you will have very interesting answers. Okay, I'm just gonna pretend, oh yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought. Very good. I feel so sad. Anyway, so the writ of habeas corpus, when this gets suspended, of course, you do not have a right to be prosecuted in a court of law. Once you are arrested, you can be imprisoned right away. Whether you were guilty or not, doesn't matter. If you get arrested, you go straight to jail. Okay, that's very unfair. And Marcos, when he suspended the writ of habeas corpus, he used this as an opportunity to arrest all his opponents. One of his most staunch opponents was Ninoy Aquino, and he had Ninoy Aquino arrested. You know, his wife, Cordy, did not even know where he was during that time. She was just told her husband was arrested, and she was like, so where is he? What are the charges? She didn't know. She only found out later on, which is a story for another time. So that's just the first. That's just the first reason. The second reason for Marcos's issuance of martial law is the threat that communists and rebels could topple the democratic government. Now, communism. Why is this topic? Because I don't even have a whiteboard. Okay, picture Asia. Philippines is here, and the surrounding countries are Southeast Asia, and above is East Asia. In East Asia and Southeast Asia, a lot of these countries already became communist. Okay? China was really communist. Vietnam, North Korea, and all of this, they were already communist. And the Philippines was one of the strongest remaining democratic countries in Asia during this time. And that's why America supported the Philippines under Marcos so much, because they were like, okay, bahala na og questionable ang iyang mga moves, basta he's democratic. As long as this man is not communist, I don't really care. Let's support him because we want him to keep being we want him to keep being democratic. Never gid na siya pwede mag-communist. So they were super supportive of Marcos, and Marcos really milked that cow. He really milked that cow, and he was like, okay, so the communist boy offered me this and that. Then the democratic America would be like, okay, then we will offer you this and that also. But it was really, he played the communist card very well. This is according to Serge Osmeña. He said he knew how to play the democratic card very well, and he got so much money from America for doing that. So what particular communist threat in the Philippines did he consider as a threat? So it was actually the Bangsamoro. Now, the Bangsamoro